we can start business?
Yes. I've got people hunting her down over there. Kenneth, Scott, Jaco, Nim and Emily are out of town, and I don't know about anybody else who is absent. This is the time, I think, of the year that we start taking applications. Kevin, can you help me with that? Because I don't remember exactly. Is anybody in the room an expert at this? We sent them out, yeah, but this is the August, right, so it's coming up. I want to make sure everybody in the room, some of you guys are better attending than members of the committee. It's good that I can talk about this right now because the people on the committee right now are the people who show up every time, practically every time. So if you're interested in serving on the disaster committee, I would encourage you when these applications come out that you put your application in. And we will select those. Those are 3-year terms. We rotate a third of the group off every year. So we'll be picking, I argue loudly for 19 every time. So we were 40 and we went to 19. I think it's more than fair. Okay. I'd like to start, if we could, with a moment of silence for Constable Brian Bachman, who lost his life in the line of duty in College Station this week. If we could take a moment. Thank you. It's always a reminder that what we do in public safety is a dangerous business, and you never know when you're going to make it home, kiss your kids, and your wife, or your husband. All right, first up on the agenda, overview of social media. Is Locke here? He'll be here at 10. I would encourage, so let me give a rules of the road for the day. We're not staying all day long like we do sometimes. We are staying in this room. Injury prevention canceled, or they're rescheduling for next time. So we have this room, we don't have to relocate, and Locke Mullen is going to go from 10:30 for probably an hour. I think that talks about an hour. How many people have seen Locke Mullen's social media lecture? I'm going to watch it again. I'm fascinated every single time. It is a great talk, and I think if you don't know anything about social media, you will be getting a Twitter account and some other stuff at the end of this session. And you won't do it because you want to tweet what kind of Big Mac you're getting today. You're going to do it because you realize there's value in emergency management and disaster preparedness to understand better the social media tools that are there. That'll be at the end of the meeting. So we're just going to move number 1 to like 10 or 10:30 and we wrap some of this other stuff up. Okay, we can just start with the work groups then. On number 2, the work group reports. 2A is the STEER. Ms. Knowles.
Okay, the STEER program that I briefed out previously was relayed to Chief Kidd. He liked the concept. We then went into a process of trying to determine how we're going to phase this across the state of Texas. The decision was made to not do it in the coastal region this year. We'll do that next year since we're already in hurricane season. There is a letter of introduction to the program that is being drafted that will go out to the mayors and the county judges. It will explain not only what the program is, but why it's important to engage in it and identify a data custodian, since there are state statutes in place for nursing homes and assisted living facilities to now register their facilities. Additionally, a new database is in development because the entire questionnaire has changed. A state online registration is also being developed. The linkage between the online piece to the database is going to be beta tested, I think, in September, if they can finish all the development this month. If not, it'll be October. The City of Houston has already begun a few months back testing the questionnaire on our online piece simply to see what the public's reaction is to it, because we have the largest number of registrations in the system. Thus far, we've not had any negative comments regarding the registration form and the questionnaire elements that are there. We are also looking at how difficult or how successful we are in doing the geocoding before it goes out into the system. And that's also what we're looking for from the folks at UT, is to do better geocoding in some of the areas regarding these addresses once they get the registrations done. This program will in fact be where they, once the registrations start, the system will, if they do it online, it will periodically go out and ask them to come back and double check their information. If they do it online, they will also get confirmation that their information has been received. And if anyone makes a change to their data, they will get an email notice saying your data's been changed, please double check it for us.
So I have a couple of questions. First, so the online registration, I think, is an excellent way to bring the numbers up. I'm always worried, and this is probably just I live like 1 foot in the old world and 1 foot in the new world. I'm always worried about the poorest of the poor that may or may not have access to online capabilities, and so the ability for them to make a phone call, or for those carnivals, or where they can attend things and sign up that way. I think it sounds like that's going to remain in place as well. The online is going to supplement that.
Right. The whole reason for the online piece is because this past year, the 211 mechanism for getting into the system saw a huge increase as a result of home health care and the requirement that's in state statute for them to assist their patient in registrations. So what they saw happening was huge volumes of paper registrations that then were bulk faxed to 211, and they don't have the capacity to truly sit there and enter those into the system. So the online piece means that you can push that back to the home health care provider and say, you have a mechanism to enter those into the system, instead of pushing the work off onto someone else.
Will this have any integration to the iPause? The iPause, whatever the name we're going to use, the cellular callback systems that are now going live, right? The phones are now enabled. At least most of them are. So my new BlackBerry is, my iPhone, I think the iOS 6 is going to enable that. Is anybody smart on this? Tech guys, Frank, are you up to this? So does everybody know what I'm talking about? So the federal government has rolled out, I think initially it was called iPause, but there's IPAWS. There are 3 or 4 different acronyms for it depending on which group you're talking to. But essentially what it means is that if you have the right phone, the emergency manager can kick off a notification in a geofenced area, let's say downtown San Antonio. And it doesn't matter if you're from Cleveland. If you're in downtown San Antonio and your phone is enabled, once they activate for that geofence, your phone you'll get a message. And actually, because I just got this BlackBerry, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have it. I'll see if I can make the sound. But it sounds like the old tornado warnings on the TV. I mean, it makes that noise, you know what I mean? That funny noise that made you look up and go look at the TV. It was usually just the test every month. That's the noise that comes over your phone. And there are 3 types of messages. There are like the alerts, like amber alerts and silver alerts. You can opt out of that. I think you can opt out of the emergency warnings locally even. You can say, I don't want to receive those. And they have a 3rd capability, which is presidential alerts. And the presidential alerts you cannot opt out of. Your phone will go, you can't say, I don't want to hear it. Which I thought was probably a smart idea. I actually think the weather ones they shouldn't be able to opt out of, frankly. But the interesting part of that is, at least on the BlackBerry, when you put it in vibrate, it takes that feature out. It doesn't make noise if it's in vibrate. So I can't opt out of the presidential thing, but I can put it on vibrate and not hear it. So I thought that was ironic.
We've not specifically discussed that yet. It will be the next piece that the committee looks at.
Okay.
How it works together.
Any questions on STEER? So this is going to roll out statewide, right? This is a real,
It's going to roll out statewide, but it'll be phased.
how would people in the audience come into contact with this, that local, you remember you mentioned the database manager, whoever's going to manage the program, is that through the local emergency management?
Each jurisdiction will be able to determine if they want to do that individually or if they want to partner with a neighboring jurisdiction, or if they want the county to do it, or they want the COG to do it. And that'll all go out in the letter that goes to the mayors and the county judges.
Cool. Excellent. Any questions for Ms. Knowles from the audience? We'll do audience stuff the whole time. I'm pretty informal. In fact, you should just raise your hand. I'm not going to call for public comment, just so you guys know. Okay. Texas Disaster Medical System, Dr. Kidd is not here today, but most of the other folks are, and so our major project, oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. That was like one of those whack-a-mole things, wasn't it? Like he popped up, I couldn't see him, and then he, come on up, Victor. The major project of things I think we're most proud of is the movement forward on EMTF. Brief us up.
Thank you. It's been a busy week and actually a busy quarter as the EMTF continues to move forward. I think y'all saw this little slogan that we've stole from everybody else that's using something similar. One team, Texas-EMTE. It's one team, it's one fight. That was one of the biggest challenges that we had to work through. At one point, we realized that it almost appeared that we had 8 competing teams. One region was looking to the other region and going, well, I don't have that yet. I don't have that capability. How do I do that? Or some of them were seeing it was having a distractful effect. And once we really sat down and worked through it and said, a big deployment, we're one team. You send me this, you send me that, we'll figure out what the gap is that we need, and we'll call across the entire state. We have lots of assets that can come together to meet our expectations right now, but we have to understand that we're all on the same team. So we started this just days before our last GETAC meeting and have pushed that through this quarter, and it's really settled into where all the guys are on the same team. You know, all the EMTF regions, they all understand they're not in this alone. We're all in this together, and it's really helped us to gain speed and move forward. We had our second birthday, I think June 1st, I guess it is, when the EMTF program funding side, although the concept and the theory's, you know, older than that, the program itself actually is 2 years old. One of the things we began to do also from our last meeting, realized that some of the discussions, words were getting confusing. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is the MOA itself, and we use specific words like agreement, the sub-agreement, the direct agreement, versions 1, 2, and the next gen. So the agreement itself dishes to the lead rack so that we're on the same page. The sub-agreement is from the lead rack to the provider. And then the direct agreement dishes to the provider. That's the one that's in place now that goes away. That's the one that we're working away from, is the direct agreement. And so when you talk about version 1 sub-agreement, lead rack to the providers, some of the racks have already put together a version that we were working on of the MOA. They're all very similar, but also all different. And so we realized that and said we need to take these and funnel them back into a single document. So that single document is version 2 of what we would have called the MOA itself. Version 2 sub-agreement is the lead rack to the provider, because remember, there is a contract that goes from dishes to the lead rack themselves. This is from the lead rack to the provider, and it's our interim solution for the MOA, because we know that in the next year to 2 years, there's going to be what we call the next gen sub-agreement, and it allows us to standardize across the entire state, not just within DSHS, but across other state entity organizations and groups who will be using a single style document, so that when the money for a statewide event or even something that grows into a federal event, all the documents flow the same way. It's on the same type of form. So
And
that's
that
what
won't-
we're calling that. Yes, sir.
That won't apply only, Victor, that won't apply just to the agreement. It will also apply to the reimbursement. So you won't have a jurisdiction having to file a separate reimbursement process for a TIFMAS deployment, and then another one with TFS for the IMT, and another one for a Texas Task Force 1 USAR guide, another one for the ambulances to the same incident in the same jurisdiction, 4 different reimbursement processes asking essentially the same thing in 4 different ways with 4 different accounting rules. This is probably one of the bigger initiatives I've seen Chief Kidd take on, and TDEM has taken a lead in this. The governor's office is supportive of this. It lines up with streamlined government. This is the senior level admin folks from these agencies have already had 2 meetings. You will see this come about in the next 18 months, 12 months to 18 months, I can promise you. And I think it's great that EMTF leadership is thinking through, we're going to do a patch for now for 2 years, but we know next gen reimbursement processes and agreements are coming that are going to streamline everything. It's a good job.
All right, so the EMTF itself continues to grow. I'm excited today because we have 7 of our 8 coordinators here. And, you know, we always ask in this meeting, or how many of your coordinators are here? 7 of the 8 are here, 1's on vacation. If we could.
Yeah, so y'all all stand up. You guys are my heroes. Can you guys stand up, please? Especially you, Derek.
All right, and I know we've got at least 1. We may have some other task force leaders. Is there? I know Brent's here. Do we have any other task force leaders? If they could stand up as well. All right.
CFLs. Yeah, baby.
I'm excited about that because that's the team. These are the guys that are getting the work done. So I'm excited for the coordinators of the task force leaders as well as all the other team members. Since our last meeting here, one of the things that we rolled out was Operation Locked and Loaded, an exercise stand-up that we did here in Austin. Recognize that's the governor, inside one of the MMUs. And we were very happy to roll this over there with Dr. Lakey there. Lots of folks came out to see what was going on, and it was the first day of hurricane season, so it truly tested our deployable capability. What we put together for that, EMTF 9 brought their 53-foot command trailer with awnings and set it up, and which is tied into this 860 that's there. So we set up the full MMU. Not only was it there as a static display, we also were force protection. We had patient care capability within the MMU for the masses of folks that were on the ground. So we were truly force protection for that incident. EMTF 8 brought the rest of the MMU outside of the command trailer section. They brought the, yes sir.
That's fine.
Yep. And then EMTF 7, Austin area provided a full ambulance strike team. EMTF 6, they brought us a AMBUS out of Atascocita, and EMTF 8 also brought an AMBUS. So those are the teams who actually deployed, came to the scene, set up, made their stuff operational, and then it was a static display at that point. We're very happy to have the governor take the time, walk through, talk to people, ask questions about each of the components. So it was a very proud moment for us to have the governor engaged in asking questions about it. Just part of the team members that were there, there are actually quite a few more that were there. As we captured, you can see Dr. Lakey and Chief Kidd in the picture as well.
Eric, I think it's really important, particularly for an opportunity like this. It's always easy to fall back on, let's gather the resources that are really close. But I think almost every EMTF had something here, and I think it's really important that they saw how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. So you guys did a great job making sure that that happened.
Thank you.
We lucked out because your big 18-wheeler was in Bernie, Texas over there getting something worked on the awning, so it was like only a 50-mile drive to get them to Austin. You know, I agree with you, Wanda, and I think the challenge is when we try to put some demo, something together, the time, effort, and I mean just fuel today at $3.50 or $4 a gallon with something that pulls, you know, that's 8 miles a gallon. Just do the math, right? it changes the scope of any of these events. And so, but we're very cognizant of that. I think that we've done a good job at the emergency management and at the EMS conference as well. So we're always mindful of that. I mean, the balance with that is always dollars, is trying to say who's gonna, you know, we put a trailer in there that's half a mile away versus 1,000 miles away. It's a number. But
The one team.
noted. One team, one fight looks really good. I think we're getting better. We agreed at the meeting before last as well on that issue to go with, there's a single shirt, there's a Texas EMTF shirt.
It actually it's very similar to my logo as a kind of a generic, without the words program, manage it, so that they're all the same. And when they're deployed.
I think that's huge. You look at Texas Task Force 1, you can tell, I mean, it's the same shirt every time. They got 480 members. I mean, we need to make sure we have regional stuff, and those regions need to be meeting and able to respond in their regions, but
It's actually that logo for the folks behind me with that. It has a star, but what you can't see is the word programs across the top and management's around it. We just lose that. So it becomes that patch with the star minus those two words.
okay.
All right. The next thing we did just shortly after that, on July 10th and 11th, another it actually is classified as a full scale because there were components that were moving. It was called Exercise Lean On Me. It simulated a earthquake, I think, or so in Arkansas. And so we had a request to deploy an MMU. So we deployed an MMU out of EMTF 2 that actually traveled to Camp Swift. Now we renamed Camp Swift, or they renamed Camp Swift as Camp Swift, Arkansas, to simulate these guys went to Arkansas. They set up the MMU. Again, the MMU was there as a static display, right up until somebody said, by the way, we're also force protection. So it's kind of becoming the theme that when the MMU gets on scene for a static display many times, because we have that capability and we bring it with us, it actually makes sense that we become force protection, and that happened there as well. In addition to that MMU actually moving, there were tabletops working across the entire state. And this is just an example of the exercise activation order we used that day to get things kicked off. We deployed ambulance strike teams. You can see all of these ambulance strike teams. There were 95 ambulances engaged and theoretically deployed out to respond to this incident. As a result, immediately after the event in Arkansas, there was a tornado simulated that went through Tyler, Texas, wiped out both of the major hospitals and all of their infrastructure, so they began to request other assets. So this is just a snapshot one of the new response resources board that our guys have worked so hard to make it so friendly. This is a new team approach of seeing what's deployed, and you can see all of the ambulance strike teams, say AST, each one of those is a team of 5 or so trucks. You can also see that in here is MMU. There were 3 MMUs that were rostered up, as well as RN strike teams that were rostered up for this exercise. So 2 RN strike teams and 3 MMUs rostered for this tabletop. Yes,
Do you have a slide on the placard? Is that coming up?
I do.
Okay, it's fine. I'm not gonna bring it up right now.
WebEOC, as a result of that exercise, one of the things that we decided, or what we learned, was that in the Response Resources Board, which we've used for a long time, other people have found the value in that board, and some of our stuff began to move around, and we had some challenges with it. So what we developed was a new board that has multifunction. It's actually a board we had that we've repurposed. This is a list of all the MOAs in the state, and it started out as, here's where the list is. If you have an MOA, it's in the list. If you don't, we need to get one. Well, we decided that going back to this board and using it to track who's deployed or who's deployable allows us, or gives us the ability, if you don't have an MOA, you're not on the list. So that's our first point. So this board helps us to go in and see who has an MOA, and that's our starting point for tracking people, activating and moving them around. So I know this is small print. I just want to see so you can see the concept. There's numbers across the top that actually sum each of these up, and we used it in our exercise this week. So the MOA becomes a starting point for our activations. Is you have to have an MOA before we can engage you in a state deployment. And there's just another screenshot of the Response Resources Board. of the different assets as they come together. The things that have the blue columns are on a team. And of course I'd fly through that. The one thing on here I wanted to show was on the far right-hand column, this says placard, and this is one of the newest, greatest features of an ambulance or a resource that's loaded into WebEOC when they're ready to be deployed and they're in this board. If you have the permissions, which is EMTF positions, then you have a button that says placard. And when you push the placard, this is an example of the placard that you can print from WebEOC, from those remote locations to go into the vehicle.
What's everybody think of that? Can you walk through what it says, the numbering system?
Oh, sure. Looking at the top of it, exercise lean on me, so whatever incident you're in, when you print this placard, it's gonna tell us. This is our validation.
Hurricane Ike.
Absolutely.
So it's incident-specific placarding.
The next line, it says contact information. This is the phone number for the first crew member in the truck. It's on the placard on the dash, so if that truck's got a flat or if it needs to be moved, you look at the placard to get the crew information for the vehicle.
I thought this was one of the coolest things I'd ever heard. So I'm like, why do we put the crew member's number on here? And the reason was, if you walk up and the truck's locked up and in the way, how do you call the driver of that truck when they're in a Walmart or they're in staging somewhere and you can't find them? So inside the glass, on the placard, is the guy who's supposed to be driving that truck, his cell phone number. That's pretty cool. It's a good idea.
The next line up there's the agency name for the vehicle. The placard should match the name on the side of the truck. That's just our check and balance. The next line says unit number. Again, that's the unit number if you've got a stack of placards so that you know which one goes in which truck. So you go put them on the right dash when you got 5 of them in your hand.
Or if there's a DPS trooper who's verifying that this placard's valid, you can look on the side, it should say Bulverde Spring Branch Medic 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the next line is the license plate, just again, another method of validation. The strike team number standardized, and we have it, this placard is designed so that EMTF 11 puts in TX11-99, it fits in the placard spot. We built it around the fact that EMTF 11 is a double digit, so that maxes out our space capability and actually fits. And then at the bottom is the standard, what was always on Maxie's deployment. This unit's on official mission, just again for DPS or whatever authority wants to know who you are and why you're here, so that this tells them what you're doing. And lastly, at the bottom is who printed it and what time.
So the numbering system is the EMTF number, whatever region they're from.
Yes.
And then the first strike team will be the
10.
tens digits. So the 10, the 0.
Yes, sir.
I've said this a lot, but it sticks. It's one of those things that goes in your head. The 0 is your strike team leader. He's a 0. He can't help you. He can't transport anybody, can he? He's a 0. So you strike team leaders ought to be mad at me, but everybody else will get it.
They're here to help.
First ambulance is the 1, right? So 11, that's the first ambulance that's being rostered, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there's your 5 ambulances. The 0 is the leader. Then you jump to 20, 21, 22. For the next strike team you roster, that leaves you, if you want to go heavy, if you take 6 ambulances or 7 ambulances, you got the surge all the way up to 9, where you ought to break over and go back into another strike team. We force them to break it into a new strike team when they get to 9. They shouldn't have 9, but they can't go to 10. They have to go into 20. That helps them. And the buses are all numbered
MPV
901, 902, 903, 904. So they're below the first strike team, so the thing completely matches up. Theoretically, if one region had not, I mean, Dallas may get there, I don't know. But if they already got 4, right? So theoretically, if they got to 9 buses, we'll have to reinvent the numbering system, but we're safe for the next year. Where's Rick at? Well, yeah. I keep lobbing these things, man, you're not. We're just struggling down our way, Rick.
A great segue into ambuses. You know, a year ago, there was 1 bus and it was in Houston, and it was a kind of a refurb that they had had for a couple of years, and they had worked, and this whole AMBUS part of EMTF began, and a lot of discussion about how in the world will we find AMBUSs, how will we get them, where are we going to find the funding. And so the first one that came to be was the replacement of the Houston bus. This is MPV 601. The next ones that came in, the two Dallas buses, 201 and 202. The next one was a Schertz bus. And then after that, the next ones came in were two more buses that went to the Metroplex, Cedar Hill and MedStar and Fort Worth Fire. Is that right?
Yep.
We'll take or have those two latest buses. Since then, El Paso's bus is in and delivered. Elite Medical is the host for it. They are working on their licensing packet right now to get it in operation. San Antonio's bus, San Antonio Fire's delivered. It's been decaled. They are finalizing their processes and putting the supplies and equipment on the bus now to put it in service. The EMTF 4 bus for the EMTF 4 Tyler East Texas region has been assigned to Palestine EMS and Hospital. So it'll go to Palestine, Texas. It arrived in Bernie yesterday to begin the graphics. So they've started decals today. The Lower Rio Grande Valley bus is coming complete with graphics, will arrive in the valley on the 20th. The Lubbock bus, EMTF 1, they're finishing it up now. I think they've said the date is 25, but we're going to push them back a little bit to get it here a little earlier. They are finishing it. It will be coming in for graphics. Then the last two, EMTF 6. This is 602 going to Houston Fire. It is getting the final fixes. We'll be leaving within the next 2 weeks, I think, coming this way. And then the last bus.
Oh. Where's Elliot? Where's Mike Elliott?
A little too much yelling in the wrong. So that one is being finished. So it's the last one in line. They are actually in the final phases of the conversion of this bus right now. It's not completely finished, but will be within the next couple of weeks, and then they'll deliver
If
it.
we couldn't have fun with Mike Elliott from Austin EMS, this meeting wouldn't be nearly as fun.
All right. One of the things is that we've realized is how valuable these AMBUSs have become. We've had a number of incidences now, lots of training exercises, but real-time deployments. We had a couple recently, Carrizo Springs response to a tornado where we deployed AMBUSs and ambulance strike teams. So this is just a summary report that was written as a result of that. It talks about what they sent, 3 strike personnel, ITS trailer, ambulance strike team, and an AMBUS. So EMTF components that were coming together to be deployed. And since then, a recent response up in the Metroplex for MPV 201 and 202 that responded to Kaufman County Mutual Aid for a facility that had 80 patients that lost power due to a vehicle accident. The AMBUSs were engaged to go help resolve or mitigate this situation.
So Victor, you guys may be doing this, but I think it's critical that we have these opportunities to talk about local deployments, regional deployments, and state deployments. You know, the state of Texas, through a lot of these funding mechanisms, has enabled this. And there's a reason, selfishly, at the end of the day, when we have a large hurricane evacuation, why that would help. I get it why they would want to do that. But more importantly, I think we need to demonstrate and be tracking to show how many local responses, how many regional responses, so that there's some balance, so that the state doesn't think that these things are just sitting all the time. We need to be able to show how many times they're dispatched and go on calls regularly, so that people don't feel like this investment that they've made is not valuable. So I don't know, and I don't want to help figure out how you guys are going to do that with your host ambulance agencies, but Dudley, as one of the ambulance operators, if you can help bring that message back, I don't know if the work group is working on that or not. And then Victor, separately, you and the coordinators need to work with the AMBUS operators to make that a seamless proposition. If the bus moves, we need to figure out how to make sure that's notified, so we get, you know, a paragraph on that to be able to compile that at the end of the year. That would be a great report to hand to DSHS and to TDM.
Big and small.
Big and small. If they go to a fair and sit for 2 hours and walk people through it. I think those are valuable things. If you have a standard report that they're filling out, so you can say, is this a PR event? Is this a health fair? Whatever it is, come up with that work, and then we can start talking about those numbers, please.
Perfect, very good. I don't think we were fully involved or completely had this in place last time we met, but the strategic oversight and the operational groups have met now for 3 months in a row. Very successful. We're able to push information through, get authenticated approval and direction from those two groups. And I just wanted to point out, these are happening, and in my opinion, they've been very successful.
So go back to that one. We went through the definitions of the agreements. We didn't go through, do you have a section about the agreements? Okay.
No, I just mentioned the agreement next.
Do you have, can you go back to that original? How many more slides do you have?
I'm almost done.
All right. Go back to that original, you know which one I'm talking about, the one we have the definitions? It's like the second or third, there we go. All right, who in the room has a DSHS direct agreement? You're an EMS provider and you have a direct agreement with the state. Raise your hand. Hi. All right. That will expire. You're about to get a letter. That's going to go away on December 31st. You'll get an official letter from DSHS, but that agreement's going to be terminated at December 31st. Some of you had forward-leaning RACs doing what they needed to do for their contract deliverables. They developed what we would call a version 1 sub-agreement back in March, April, May timeframe. And you may have signed that one instead. That one is a valid and will work as an agreement. Last night, we came out with the final version that is going back to each lead RAC for evaluation and approval, and in 30 days, we're coming back together, September, whatever, and that will become version 2's final sub-agreement from the state. That really will be the next 24 months at least, maybe longer. That's the new agreement, and it's between the lead RAC and the provider. Okay? So, on or about September 14th, the day after we do the live thing, you're going to see people, RACs trying to get you, in fact, when the letter comes from DSHS, it may have a reference, and it may include the other agreement. We haven't worked out the logistics, how that's exactly going to happen. That'd be a good idea, though. Brad?
There was also an MOA out there for personnel for like the mess, and that is this going to replace that as well?
The new lead RAC will cover personnel as well. That was one of the things that was very frustrating, I know, for me and you. It's, we're deploying your ambulances, but also you as a MIST guy. We got 2 completely separate agreements. And if you can see us consolidate that on the SMOC DSHS side of things, imagine how nice that's going to be for your city manager to have a TIFMAS, all the other things that are consolidating as well. So we see small consolidations on the DSHS side between personnel and ambulance. But we're also seeing at a large scale at the state agency level some consolidation for that next gen. Next gen will be 18 to 24 months. That's your expectation. So version 2 sub-agreement is what most of you guys will see. Some RACs may elect to leave the version 1, the one they did in April or May, they may leave that in place. Some of them may come back to you and ask you to sign the newest version. Please don't beat them up too badly with that, because frankly, they did the right thing in April, May, and did what they were supposed to do, and then we've made some modifications of that and come out with what I think is a better document, but it's not their fault. If anything, it's my fault, it's Victor's fault, it's Rick Bays' fault. So it's really not our fault either, but I'm going to take it's certainly not theirs. That's what I would say.
Some of the version 1 sub-agreements actually have expiration dates of December 31st, and they don't renew.
Got it.
Some of them are written that way.
Anybody have any questions about that? I think that's critical. If we go out the door this weekend for a hurricane, we're in the hybrid year. Okay? If you have a version 1 agreement in place, that will work. If you have a direct agreement, the old agreement in place, that will work. But come December 31st, the only agreement on state deployments will be the lead RAC will be the version 2 sub-agreement. No questions? TAA, no questions? All right. Not yet.
The MOA, we covered that. Typing document, we worked really hard on typing for the MMU. We've got that working through the groups, makes good sense. Added a fifth type, a type 5 MMU, which is personnel personnel without the shelters. And then standardize the EMTF deployable caches for the MMU. This is the ER opinion bag so that everybody sees the thing. And right now we're finalizing a standardized document for deployment where we're working with dishes through the SMOC to make sure that as we're sending out activation letters or state mission assignments, that all the documents look the same and flow through. So that's what I have.
Any questions for Victor on this? Brad?
Just real quick, I want to have some discussions on concern I've got that maybe I'm just not seeing it, but within this room and within the RAC level, we've identified all these EMT resources, but I'm not seeing it roll down to the local level, to the responder, and let them know these resources are here and here's how you go about requesting these resources. It becomes obvious at a state deployment level, but local and possibly at a regional level, I see kind of a link there, and I don't know if I'm just the only one seeing that or not.
Anybody else see that as well? Who in the room thinks that's an accurate statement or it's reflective of your area as well?
I think it is.
Yeah?
I mean, and we've discussed it, that we need to have maybe a format that we can put together so each RAC can go out and do that. But when we toured the ambuses around the region, some of the people seen those. Now they know, but they don't know how to access them. They know we got them. So we need to get down below the RAC level now into the provider level and try to figure out a way statewide to educate.
So, Victor, I think the State Coordination Office needs to come up with, Mark Sastry's working on a video, a YouTube kind of 5-minute thing that you can click on, and it kind of explains EMTF and those things. I think we need to put a 1-pager or maybe a 2-pager kind of a thing that it's PDF and then a RAC if they're going to do these. If you're taking the AMBUS, what do you hand out that says what is the Texas Disaster Medical System and then what is EMTF, and then at the bottom it says if you're in these regions in the map and there's a line out like how the TDM map with the things. I think we need to say here's EMTF 8, here's the call center, here's Medcom 1-800-247-6428, here's EMTF 2, and here's the call center, and 1-800 here's how you do that. Here's when you can call and show the local, regional, and state level activations. If you're a provider, you're not going to care. If I need ambuses, I don't care if it's a state, if they don't care about that. They just need the 1-800 help me, and where do I call, and this thing. And that 1-page thing to give, I think does everybody agree, think that's a good idea?
I think there's also some extension to the discussion that we had yesterday about making sure the region knows when assets are not available. And how if you have 2 ambuses in your region and one is deployed, the other group knows, so they know they have a bigger coverage area.
Or out of service. I mean, it's broken, they're breaking them.
Right.
So.
And one of the things we've learned in taking our bus around, kind of like Ricky was talking about, is it's one thing to get out and show off the bus, and we've done it at a couple of RAC meetings, and all of the chiefs in our area know about the bus. When we had the school bus wreck with 23 kids laying out on the road, none of the Indians on that scene knew anything about the bus.
Right.
So you've got to sell the chiefs on it, but the Indians need to know as well that resource is there, and that's entirely 2 different types of meetings and sales jobs, I guess, or advertising.
I don't disagree at all. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, one element we don't need to forget about is the volunteer aspect of it. Down in my area, there's a lot of volunteer agencies. I see attendance by a lot of the career professional agencies, and I think we need to look at either the SFFMA conferences or something to kind of roll this out if we haven't in the past. But a lot of those kind of tend to get forgot about as well.
So I agree. I mean, you look at the EMS conference and the emergency management conference, we had big displays there, really tried to put together, here's an ambulance, here's the buses, here's the MMU. The reality is, so 2,000 people, 3,000 people, I mean, there's 60,000 certified people in Texas, and 3,000 of them came to a conference. I mean, whatever that gets into, I don't know what the math is there, but it's not a lot, right? It's like 5%. So the penetration is going to take us, but the good thing is, I think the AMBUSs especially are really coming together cohesively. Excuse me. That group's meeting 4 and 5 hours at a time. They're sharing best practices. They're really working together well. They see themselves, I think, as a statewide project pretty well. They've committed to doing things the same way and to stock the buses essentially. We went to North Carolina and visited. They just gave buses away and said, do whatever you want. One of them holds 14, one of them holds 20, one of them's a BLS sled, and the other one's a full-blown driving, mobile, literally an intensive care unit driving down the road. And I think one of the best things we've done in Texas is take a more thoughtful and deliberate approach to that and make sure that the things are consistent. So if you call for a Type 1 AMBUS here, you know exactly what you're going to get. The personnel that rolls up is going to be the same. I think that's a good idea. Getting that message out requires time, energy, and money. You got to go to some shows and put it on the road. Dudley?
I was just going to say, I think it lends some credence to your suggestion about here's the information sheet and here's how you activate it. Because we showed a lot of people, granted 2,000 people were there. 2,000 people probably saw the buses in the MMU, and 1,990 of them probably walked away with no clue about how to activate them if they needed them.
Yep.
Because we didn't have that to put in their hands. And I don't know if there's a disaster track at the EMS conference. I know the AMBUS guys would be interested in doing something there if there is. Or if we could snag a room and do a few classes, and that might be an opportunity to provide a little more in-depth than what you do one-on-one in the exhibit hall.
Yep. So we have had, so to Victor's point earlier about this is the second anniversary in June of that program being officially started. Think where we have come in 24 short months. I mean, we now have all the field hospital stuff in place in every region. We have 13 AMBUSs. Almost every region of Texas is covered, both urban and rural areas. But what we're starting to find is that it's the operational components. How do we activate it? When we activate it, who knows that it's been activated? And the things that you kind of take for granted at your regular job, we're struggling through a lot of those growing pains. I would encourage all of us to try, we owe it as stewards, as attendees to this meeting. You are charged with being a steward of this message and trying to remember that things are not going to go perfectly on the deployments. They never do. But that everybody's trying to do the right thing, and we need to try to come back together and address those things in a constructive manner. Not, well, this was screwed up. I mean, the whole thing's, we need to come back with a message that we can fix things, and I think that's important to keep in mind. We had a few glitches that we had just on this Kaufman County thing. Worked through it. It's fine. It's perfect. Actually, it was a helpful discussion yesterday. So, and we're building systems in place, I think, that'll improve those things as we start to deploy. Thank you. Go ahead.
This is starting point. We're not ready to officially, 8 of the regions have identified an area. We've got one more that should come online in the next couple of weeks. And then this will be our contact points where we'll start to help be able to get that information out. So we're not completely ready, but we're close.
So you could almost you could put one big, whatever the one big patch thing you were talking about, and it would be easier. Most of those places are dispatch centers in their own right. Right? Am I correct? So I think I think it would be helpful if you bought some real estate back and take each patch away and just put EMTF 8 coordination center 24/7 phone number, and then parentheses Medcom or whatever, so they know what they're calling. If they're calling EMTF 6, I think it's Cypress Creek, right? So it would say EMTF 6 coordination center parentheses Cypress Creek EMS dispatch. Just so that when they answer the phone, go, Cypress Creek EMS dispatch, can I help you? They go, well, I thought I was calling the EMTF coordination center. So that alone on that slide would be helpful, and I think it's the next iteration of this map. People think that's a good idea? Any other thoughts about how to get the word out? It's your opportunity to. Okay. Good work, Victor. Sub-agreements, placards. We had a discussion yesterday also about fleet eyes. We probably will be able to put fleet eyes, which is a common operating picture. It's a tracking system. We're taking that region-wide in our rack for all ambulances and some of the air medical providers. And we are talking to the Fleet Eyes guys about doing that for the ambuses and possibly even the ambulances on deployment statewide. So that's going to be more to follow on the Fleet Eyes discussion. If you want some information about that, see me afterward. All right. So you kind of covered the, let's hit the typing real quick. I got it.
I did overlook one thing, AMBUS, there's an update about AMBUS, and I gave everything except one key thing they covered was they found that identified a $63.75 hourly rate.
They're sort of using the ambulance rate, but it's a little bit of modification for the personnel.
Yes.
All right.
And with that, we covered AMBUS on your agenda as well.
So the typing, we've broken out 5 different types of MMU. So the type 1 is a full 32 bed with a full cache of people, emergency physicians, etc. The type 2 is exactly the same footprint from a tentage perspective, but it's half the personnel. It's a one shift instead of a day-night shift. It's simply one shift, which drops the number of people that have to deploy. The cool part about that is if you send a type 2, they're going to grab the real estate they need, and if you need to send additional personnel and make it a type 1 where they can go into 24/7 mode, you've already grabbed your real estate, which is a good idea. Type 3 is about halfway in between all that, and then the real thing I want to talk about was type 4, 5. The type 4 and type 5 personnel-wise are exactly the same. Type 4 comes for an austere environment with tentage. The type 5 comes with the people and the medical equipment, but not the tentage. So you save some of the big traders. A place where you have a building of opportunity or you're just plussing up something, you could send a type 5, which is a mid-level provider. There's a manager, a mid-level provider, a couple of nurses, a couple of paramedics. Kind of the Bastrop Fire clinic kind of a thing, right? So more to follow on that. Discussion of RMOX, we will postpone. There's some things that Dr. Kidd will bring with the TDMS report. EMTF Task Force Governance, we talked about that with the MOA. AMBUS, we talked about that. EMTF Coordination Center Standards. Skip that. MOA Work Group, we just covered. Disaster medical care with scarce resources. Dr. Morber, do you have a report at all about that? Yeah? Okay, let me do a quick time check on this. Locke, I see you in the back, brother. I got you. We're going to shoot for, so 10:30 to 12 is the other block of time? Yes. Okay, we're going to try to go to, I'm oddly going to try to manage myself here. Dr. Morber, you and I are going to agree to try to get all this done in the next 20 to 30 minutes, which will put Locke on for 45 minutes or so, maybe. And that'll get us to 11:15, 11:30, and we'll get out here 30 minutes early. What do y'all think? No,
Wow.
What's the over-under?
It's a plan. No plan ever survives first contact. Go ahead, Dr. Morber. Disregard Dudley over there.
Thank you, Eric. As you know, when I was first asked to do this by Eric, it was a very daunting task. It was something I looked at like everybody looks at me when I talk about it, like the deer in the headlights, and you go, where do I even begin with this? This has been recognized by the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Health and Human Services. The pandemic flu is what we're talking about, as probably as a worst-case scenario and the most likely event that could befall this country in the near future. As a result of it, we started to look at certain aspects of this, and we thank Utah for not copyrighting their program because we can take it and modify it. We are not Utah. We have 26 million people. There are 2.6 million people in Utah. Other states that have designed their programs around this, their populations are in the 5 to 6 million range. They do not have the ethnicity, the social diversity, the economic diversity the state of Texas does. So what we wanted to do was take a look at this in a structural fashion and try to bring it into what we felt for the best people, for our people in our state. In so doing, we looked at the health service regions, the regional advisory councils. These areas are as big as states in other states in the country. and we wanted to develop strategies. We do not want to call this crisis standards. Standards indicate that thou shall or shall not. What we want is catastrophic guidelines, and then let the individual, either regional advisory councils, health service regions, take our recommendations and develop their own tactical efforts to produce what we are advising that they do. So we've looked at this in a number of fashions. We started off with basically the initial triage tool, which we agreed to adopt, and this is going to go for EMS and dispatch, physicians' offices, call-in centers, where we'll decide who should or recommend who should and who should not present themselves to either a triage center or a medical office in the event of a pan flu. We've looked at the criteria that we have for ventilator status. We looked at the exclusion criteria, the inclusion criteria, and what we call minimal qualifications for survival. As far as the exclusion criteria, we decided that the DNR in the state of Texas is very fluid. People can revoke a DNR, so we took the DNR off the exclusion criteria and made it such that if you have a DNR and any other exclusionary criteria, you will not have access to ventilator status. We did this both for children and adults, and we have accepted the rest of the criteria as standard. Now, children present a particular problem since they're our progeny and since they are the future for our state. We looked at the what Utah has said, and they have what they call a pediatric mortality index, which really doesn't work. It's involved, its basis is in ICU and the usage of certain criteria in a whole group setting. It's not an individual setting, and therefore we're looking at the clinical respiratory score as a standard to at least initiate our criteria for ventilatory support. We have also looked at other aspects to include force protection, and we know force protection not only includes the hospitals and the people that work for us, but it's basically our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure, key resources, those that support our government and our society, and we have to look at how best to sustain these in the event of a pandemic, because it will involve not only the hospitals. How do we get the goods to the hospitals? How do we protect the surroundings of the hospital? How do we maintain our electrical grid? How do we maintain our sewage systems, our water systems? These are all involved in the same aspect, so we have to look for protection. But also in protection, we have to realize that there's a cost, and we have to be made aware of what this cost will be. There is actually a monetary cost anytime we're going to go and set up a standard for force protection, so we'll be looking at that. At this juncture, we're going to go ahead at our next meeting and discuss the children's criteria, and we're going to have a very lengthy discussion on EMS. The standards will have to change. You won't be able to call for an ambulance just to come out and transport to a hospital. There will have to be specific criteria, and we will look at this in depth, and we're going to spend a whole day on this in September going over these criteria. We also have to discuss social media because, as Locke will probably present and as we've discussed in the past, not only is there public communication, there's risk communication, and we have to prevent any adverse events as a result of the social media, such as you've seen in certain places like in California with the closure of the ports and other things that have gone on. So we're going to take a very in-depth look at this and spend one whole day discussing this particular topic. We also want to develop a time frame of when things should occur. We want to include, and I want to discuss with Eric, some other people, about the utilization of WebEOC and how we can bring in surveillance to determine at which point we need to enforce force protection, at which point we need to change our status for dispatch and EMS, and at which point we will need to change our status for the hospitals. At what capacity are we going to look at? So we're going to spend a whole day on that. We also need to educate our elected officials and community leaders. Most of them have no knowledge of this event, and it's going to take some time for them to even realize the significance of an incident of this magnitude. We also have to discuss ventilator allocation. As you know, there's some 70 to 80,000 hospital beds, 56,000 are staffed at any given time. We have no way to know how many ventilators there are. our best estimate is 2/3 to 3/4 of the number of ICU beds, which is somewhat less than 6,000 ventilators. In a worst-case scenario, we're looking at 65,000 ventilators. So we have to discuss what we call the concept of centers of excellence, which would mean that major centers would be the only ones that handle ventilator support, and/or in the smaller districts or larger areas such as West Texas, where every hospital would have the ability, or where we have a blending of the structure. And this would be pretty much based on the health service regions and the major cities and towns, and then go on to the rural areas, and they can discuss what would be beneficial for them. We also have to have an informed consent, because anytime you restrict care, people have to be made aware of the of this process. So we want to develop a informed consent so that people will know and have knowledge of what actually is going on. And then we would like to take this on the road and develop a road show and implementation, and we'll see how this develops. But that's our plans for the future, and hopefully we have 4 meetings scheduled for the rest of this year. We'd like to squeeze in 2 more, and if we can, maybe we can complete this in 6 to 8 months.
Any questions for Dr. Morber on that effort? So this is not fun work. This is homework of large proportions, and Dr. Morber has been a tireless advocate for this. We all spend time looking at cool tents and looking at ambuses and that kind of fun stuff, but he has taken a group of people and continued to keep I think interest and enthusiasm for a subject that sometimes is mind-boggling. We think about pandemic response, and someday, hopefully, we never have to pull this plan out. But when we do, we're going to be really thankful. I'm thankful now, and I appreciate your work in this, Dr. Morber, and anybody else has been participating in that group. Any other questions? Okay, good plan of action. The disaster medical care. All right, TDMS training committee report. Is Kelly in here? I thought I saw him earlier. So they've done those modules. We rolled out 3 or 4 of those at the at the Emergency Management Conference. You'll see more of those coming out. So some of those are online training. The others works a little bit like ICS. So there's a 100, 200, et cetera, kind of a building block approach. So you'll see those come to fruition shortly. Ambulance ConOps work group. Joe, is that even met? Okay, so that's dealing with staging and O2 at the staging areas and that kind of stuff. I think we're just going to leave that on there as a placeholder in case you got something that comes up, but I understand. Okay, the Interstate Disaster Medical Coalition Collaborative, that's a group that we stumbled into. It's a multi-state group, North Carolina, Missouri, Michigan, California, I'm missing some, Texas now. Rhode Island. Don't forget Rhode Island. Actually, they were really helpful. They've done a lot of cool things in Rhode Island, seriously. So we met in Dallas for 2 days. This was an initiative because of Bruce Clements from DSHS, the Preparedness Director, has some connections with the people in Missouri where he was from. He introduced us to that group, and basically it was a sharing of ideas about what we're doing here, what they're doing there, and how we can work better together. I think it's going to lead to more discussion about interstate deployment capabilities for these kinds of assets. And what I mean by that is, how do we take what we're doing with EMTF on the road to be able to go to a problem in North Carolina or in Rhode Island or in Missouri? And when they call for a type 1 MMU, those are our typings. We came up with that. We haven't matched that with what they have. And so all those other places have been doing its silos of success. And this volunteer effort through this IDMC group is basically a way to start building a clearinghouse of information to set that up. So I think it's the next step, the next growth process. And so we supported that, and I thought that was a good meeting. More to follow on that in the future. Don't worry about the Discuss Common VHF channel plan right now. Number 5 is the Texas Volunteer Registry and the Emergency System of Volunteer Health Professionals, the ESAR VIP program. I think that's still costing us about 450,000 people. I think at last count we had 1,100 volunteers registered in that guy. That's $500,000 a year we're paying for 1,100 people to register. I'm glad to know that Rhode Island has 1,400 people in their ESAR VIP program. We only have 26 million here. Rhode Island's got us beat by 300 people in the ESAR VIP program. I'm not sure we're getting our money's worth on the 500 grand a year. Just my thought as an editorial. First responder credentialing. I skipped over this TMAC report. I'll let Chief Kidd do that at the next. He's going to want to do that. First responder, the FRAC pilot project. You guys know that we're trying to work on a smart card for state first responder credentialing. There's a lot of effort on first responder credentialing, but also in general moving towards identity proofing, identity management. You have worries about identity theft online every day, right? We all worry about that, probably have some gold 3-watch check thing for your credit and for your identity being stolen. All of that ties together, and I think you will see in the near future. By the way, does everybody know that smart cards are coming, chip and PIN cards are coming for your credit card shortly? How many people knew that? Okay, you're going to hear a word. I'm going to tell you what it is now, but you're going to start hearing it in the next 6 to 9 months. It's called EMV. That's EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. So EMV is an initiative by MasterCard and Visa to bring smart technology to your credit card to try to increase the security, to decrease fraud and abuse in the credit card industry, okay? So you're going to get a card with a chip in it in the future that they'll send you. The challenge with that is it's really not assigned to you, it's assigned to your account, right? It just went to your house. They know it showed up at your house, but it's not really an identity card. But it is going to bring smart technology. And I'm talking about 2014. Retailers are going to have smart card readers in there at the HEB, at the Walmart, whatever, by 2014, or they'll not be in compliance with what MasterCard and Visa are trying to get done. So it's coming like a freight train. And when it happens, all these things will kind of align. We're still working with the Driver's License Bureau and DPS to align this FRAC project, this first responder credentialing project, so that we don't run off in one direction and the state goes in another. We want to make sure that's in lockstep. The challenge with that is, like any bureaucracy, it's making sure that we get everybody at the right table at the right time and moving slow, so it moves slower than I would prefer, but it's moving forward nonetheless. I'll take any questions on the Tex FRAC project.
You just want to mention our next meeting day,
September 17th is the next meeting date. We are hoping to roll out a pilot project of maybe 500 cards, maybe up to 1,000, but probably more like 500 cards before the legislative session. We think we need to be able to demonstrate what the card looks like, how it works, how it would interact. And so we have some of the members of the Tex FRAC community that have been participating, specifically from the Panhandle, John Kyle, and the Panhandle folks have gotten some names. The USAR guys, the IMTs, EMTF. There would be pockets of people who would go on a state mission, but we want to put those into law enforcement and fire and EMS. The Houston ship pilots, the guys that drive the ships when they come into the channel, they're going to participate as well. So we're trying to find pockets of subpopulations for the pilot project. We're excited about that. That's September 17th. Have any questions? See Reagan after that. We can get you some information about the next meeting. Placeholder there, number 8, tracking spending, the cost of hospitals. That's just left there because we had so much trouble that Ernie kind of helped us with back in the day after Hurricane Ike. We still haven't resolved that at the federal level, but I don't want to take it off the agenda and forget about it. We'll leave it there. Texas-EMTE, Chris is now going to do a quick demonstration for us about that, and then Dudley, you'll be wrong. Oh, where'd he go? That's what he does. He says something, then when he's going to be wrong, he leaves.
Good morning. This is just going to be a quick overview of ETN, specifically addressing some of the recent changes. Hopefully everyone knows that ETN is actually a collaboration of systems. It incorporates several systems, 4 that are used on a daily basis in the local jurisdictions independently. And when they are joined into a large statewide incident, that's when these individual systems become the Texas Evacuee Tracking Network, or ETN. These are all administered locally, and again, they are connected or joined up to become ETN during a major incident. Those four components, the first one is WebEOC. The second is the Radiant RFID evac center. The third is EMTrack, and the fourth, which I do not have a screenshot of here, is the Sabine Natchez Chiefs Association software. So it's those four primary components that will link up and share this information through a common portal. So during an incident when ETN is activated, any of the information entered into any of these individual systems can be viewed and manipulated by any of the others. So a coastal jurisdiction who is using the EMTrack component, their data can be seen in a sheltering jurisdiction who uses exclusively WebEOC. Likewise, if the Texas military forces are activated to go out and participate in an evacuation and they are rostering these evacuees, they would most likely be using the Radiant RFID component of this. But again, for anyone in this room or anywhere else who's using any one component of that, it really doesn't matter what everybody else is doing because you're all seeing the same data. So that's the real strength of ETN. As such, there are some significant challenges in making any changes or updates to ETN because all four of these systems have to sort of agree on the changes. Making a change in WebEOC, for instance, is typically a relatively simple matter, but in the case of ETN, any change made in WebEOC has to be coordinated, so a corresponding change is made in EMTrack and Radiant RFID and the Sabine Natchez software as well.
Is that clear to everybody in the room? Did everybody follow what he just said?
I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
Start over.
Start over.
I can
No,
certainly
kidding.
do that.
So you can hold it like you can pull it off if you want to make feelings.
I can sing that. We didn't mean to tear it
Yeah,
up.
not quite like that. So the challenge we have, what Chris is talking about, is that each of those products are linked. So if we find a problem in the STAR, everybody's learning about the WebEOC, the STAR, the State of Texas Assistance Request, right? How to turn in, I need 100 cots. If we discover a problem, we change it, push it out, which it still is not that easy, but we can change it pretty quickly. It's not as easy or it's straightforward when you change something and three other products have to agree, and the other groups want to be, I mean, rightfully so, want to be paid for making those changes, right? If you're a company and someone calls and says, well, we agreed to do it this way, and now you want to change these fields and do stuff, that's work that a developer, then there's testing and all the stuff. And so we're in some ways, we have some limitations to making what are logical changes because of that integration.
So, yeah, absolutely correct. And can everyone hear me now? All right. WebEOC is one. EMTrack is another. Radiant RFID evac center. And the fourth is the Sabine Natchez Chiefs Association. And that's really not the name of the product so much as the group, but they developed their own solution in-house. That they like and worked very well and actually integrated very nicely. What are the specs on it? It is an evacuee tracker, yes. Yes. And so at the end of the day, all four of these individual packages do very much, not the same, but a very similar mission. They are used for evacuee. Even EMTrack, which is a patient tracker, in this context, it is an evacuee tracker / patient tracker. The magic of ETN is it takes any one of those four and shares the data with the other three. So with regards to the limitations on some of the changes we have difficulty making, there are some that we are able to make. If the data is already in there, we can alter how it is presented. So based on some feedback, we have been able to make some alterations specifically for this group to some of the hospital components of this. What we have here is a screen capture of the hospital display. And I know the print is fairly small. I have on the next slide here sort of a close-up of one part of this. So this is the bulk of what it shows on the dashboard. You can drill down and get more details, but this is sort of an overall dashboard view. And if we zoom in on this a little, what it's showing us is the facility name and location. If there are any vehicles en route to that location that have been rostered and entered into the system, it will show those, so these facilities will have some idea of what's headed their way. And then the next two columns are there's a manual census and a banded census. These two numbers should be the same. Unfortunately, the reality is that they wind up being different. So the manual census is a nurse or somebody walking around and actually doing a head count. I have 10 people in 10 beds. The banded census is the automatic tracking piece of this. When the evacuee or patient is rostered into the system, they are given the yellow wristband. I'm sure we've all seen. Those wristbands have an RFID chip embedded into them. They also have a barcode as well as a human readable number. So there's a multitude of ways that a patient can be entered in to that system with the wristband, and unfortunately that might be one of the challenges, is because there are multiple ways to do it, there are also multiple ways for it to go horribly, horribly wrong, especially if you're trying to do it manually. When you're typing in that 8-digit number, I think we can all see how that could result in something unintended. At any rate, the banded number is the census based on what the system thinks is in that facility based on those wristbands. And then we've got patient totals based on their status, red, yellow, green. So we can see in this first example, it's showing we have one red patient, no yellow patients, and one green patients, which matches the 3 total that we think we have based on the wristbands. We actually have 2 more in there in reality. So again, this is a close-up of the overall hospital view. So we can see all of the hospitals in a geographical area and get some quick information on the overall status there. The next part of this, and this is from this hospital view, there's a button off to the right that says View Patients. So if we click on that button, this is what it shows us. So this is sort of the dashboard of all those patients. This shows us an overview of all of the patients in a specific facility. I'm going to come back to this in a moment, but again, I've zoomed in here just so you can see. This is what each line looks like. We'll show their wristband number, the patient's name. If there's a group leader wristband number, that'll be there. And what that is, that this might be something that's more applicable to a shelter guest than a patient in a hospital. But how this system works is in an evacuation, entire households are leaving. So in order for the Texas Military Forces or whoever's rostering these people to not have to enter redundant information in for an entire family, they can assign one person to be that group leader or head of household, and then everybody that's associated with that patient or evacuee will be able to share that information, such as their address.
So Chris, that's, the way you said that was probably, I mean, if people were like listening 75%, that was probably confusing. So the Texas Military Forces are not coming to your hospital. So the problem we've had with this product, or the concept, is that we're trying to accomplish things for general population evacuation and hospital evacuation, nursing home evacuation. Everybody's in the same system. Because amazingly, people are gen pop, and they go to a shelter, and then they get sick, and we take them to the hospital, and then they gotta go from the hospital back to a medical shelter, then eventually they go back to the, so it's really important for that to be one integrated system. The challenge for guys like Chris, who goes all over the state training on WebEOC stuff, is to remember which bucket I'm in right now. The group band number, from my perspective, we had a tabletop on Monday, and one of the things we thought would be valuable, someone asked me the question, what about the family of the patient? I mean, or do we need to band, if you're a family member of a patient sitting there in the room, or do I get evacuated as well? You would assume yes, if they don't have a ride out or they don't have a car. So if I'm gonna go with, my wife's a patient and I'm gonna ride with her, the patient would be the group leader, and then the next person, that's a parent-child, essentially a parent-child relationship when you're in the shelter. This would be a parent-child relationship between the patient as the parent and the family member, whoever that is, wife, whatever, would be the other band number under that. Does that make sense to everybody? One of the big things I think is there's hundreds of thousands of people on the evacuation side of this, on the Gen Pop. A lot of the product and the development and the effort's been driven for that. We have not spent as much time, frankly, on the hospital transfer side of it, and we're just getting, I think, into the nitty gritty, and that's where some of these boards are changing, and the things we learned on Monday was painful, but fascinating. So, sorry, go ahead.
It's all right. Thank you. So again, this is just some very, very basic demographics on each patient. If we go back to the patient dashboard here, in addition to the details on the patient, up here near the top of this screen, again, we can see some more details on the total numbers based on patient condition, your red, yellow screens. So again, just a very quick overview of what the entire facility looks like. There's a couple other buttons. Again, this is showing us some very basic patient demographics, but for each of these patients, there's an update button off to the side where we can update and change any of their record. We can also view some more details that we'll actually look at that in a moment. There's also, off to the left, there's two buttons that you may hopefully can see over there. One says transfer and one says repopulate. Essentially, the repopulate button obviously is for when it's time for them to go back home. The transfer button is typically used, it can be an inter-facility transfer, or if in the case of where the patient needs to go to a facility with an enhanced level of care, or for whatever reason, and we'll look at what that does here in a moment as well. This is something that is brand new. This is a report that any one of those facilities can run at any given time, and this is going to show sort of a running total of all the patients that have either come from or are going to their facility. Again, this is new. Eric, would you like to talk any about this?
So hospital people in the room, raise your hand. Hospitals, all right, you ready for this? Ready, this really cool system. Because when you move them from your hospital onto the ambulance, they go onto the ambulance in that list, right? Because they're no longer in your hospital, which is really cool. So if you got 100 patients and you're trying to move them out, and you go boop, 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 and those three go on, and boop, boop, there's an ambulance, put them all on, they're gone, right? So now you're down to 70 or 60 or 50, and you're working towards the victory of having none of them on that list, right? I'm like, that's great. I said, where'd they all go? They went, they're gone. I went, oh, no, 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 no. Where's the back click? I need the, and they said, they're no longer there. Why do they care? They're gone. I went, you don't understand. So they've developed a report so that if they started in your hospital, you can click the patient transfer summary report and see not only that they were in your hospital, but the ambulance that they were, or the vehicle they used to transport, and then their destination currently. So, I mean, can you see completely? So from an embarkation, if you're at an embarkation hub in Galveston and you were moving people onto a bus, you wouldn't care if after they're on the bus and they're gone, right? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So the developer guys have had a tough time realizing that knowing where the patients went is a big deal, because you can search for the patient real time anytime you want. So it's it's the paradigm shift of looking at a cube, and looking at it from a different angle. So that we're getting that hospital perspective now that's really important. Thank you guys for putting that report together last week, by the way.
So this is sort of a dashboard view. This is all of the transfer requests. Again, from that patient view, when you click on that transfer button, this is what happens. That patient is put into a pool of patients who need to be transported. Depending on how your region is set up, you can have a couple different folks looking at this. One is going to be your EMS desk or transport desk, right? And they're going to be watching this and hopefully making some intelligent decisions based on where that patient is and where they think they need to go. They're going to be assigning them to an ambulance, a bus, or whatever sort of transportation is appropriate. The second group that'll be watching this is your medical operations center or your hospitals, however, again, that's going to work. And they're going to look at each of these and decide who's going to be the lucky recipient of this patient that needs to be transferred, right? So if I'm the facility, I've got somebody that needs to go. I'm not sending them somewhere. I'm just saying they need to go. Then at that point, it becomes incumbent upon those receiving facilities to look at this pool and accept that patient. Yes,
So
sir.
Chris, so you and the people in the room may hear that if you are a system hospital and you already have a point-to-point system with a network like an HCA or a Christus solution, you would be able to select those. If you don't have that capability, then this kind of goes into the bucket of I need help. Every area has a little bit different twist on how they do what he's talking about. In San Antonio, we let our hospitals grab those patients because they know what their census is back at home. And so we'll say, hey, there's 45 people, start grabbing them. At the CMOC in Houston, Lori and their gang, the ops chief, actually are assigning those to the receiving hospital. The receiving hospital doesn't have, it's not a choice, it's here, you're getting one on a rotation basis, whatever it is. So I want you to hear that the intent of the board is to allow the flexibility for any of those business rules to be done and not constrain anyone to do it any certain way. The challenge with that is it's hard to train on it because you have to understand. You can't just say press this button, then here, and you go, well, that's not how we do it here. We've struggled some with that. So, and hospital transfers, while we do interfacility transfers every day, they are complex, and in a disaster, you may or may not have those. We're not probably going to have those physician conversations. Hopefully, we'll have a nursing once we tell you. I was looking at Carolyn and you guys back there, all the things we've done with citizens over the years. Sometimes you get a nursing report. A lot of times you don't actually get a nursing report to that unit. You'd be lucky if you did. So, go ahead, Chris. We got like 3 minutes. You got 2 more slides.
Roger that. So just real quick, this is what the shelter dashboard looks like. As you can see, it's very similar to the hospital dashboard, but there's some additional information such as capacity, which the hospitals, that doesn't display. Because that's really a much harder number with a shelter than it is with a hospital. It's a lot more significant to the shelter folks. Other than that, much of the same information. Pet friendly is again something else that we don't see on the hospitals.
The pet friendly hospital.
Just real quick, I don't expect anybody to try to read any of this, but just so y'all understand, it's one system that tracks evacuees, patients, et cetera, but the information that we're gathering, this is the input screen for an evacuee. This is it. This is all the information that an embark center would be collecting on an evacuee. If this person is an evacuee going to a medical shelter, there's some additional information, right? You can see how it got run from this to this. If this person is a medical patient, this, for Carolyn, is all the information that we're trying to collect on that patient, and this is the, go ahead.
So it's clear all those fields exist on every single person. We only show non-medical people the demographic, last name, first name, so, you know, zip code, address.
Right, and so let's say this person is a patient and we filled all this out and now they're going to a shelter from a hospital. When they get to that shelter, this is what the shelter manager is going to see.
How many of you guys got medical shelter people to your hospitals and you didn't know anything about the care they've been getting for 2 days? Absolutely. So this is a way for them to document that care and for anything that's been going on in there. And then when you pull them up in this system, you'll be able to see it. It's a little bit like, it's not quite an electronic medical record, but it is close. The permissions of the system allow you have to be a medical person from a hospital or from EMSHC or a medical shelter role to be able to see those additional fields. If you're a shelter manager or an emergency management coordinator, whatever, you're not going to see those medical fields. That's patient specific. That was very, very good, Chris. That's a tough subject to do in 6
Any
minutes.
questions?
Yes, sir. I have one question. The band that you were talking about, the one band from families,
No, per person.
Everyone gets a band.
okay, so you calculate the numbers by putting a band on it.
Correct. Just so to clarify what I was saying, if it's an entire household, each individual in that household will get a band, but I only need to enter the address and some of that redundant demographics for the head of household, and that will carry over into the other household members. But they all have an individual band number. Yeah, they all have an individual band. There are also bands, I don't know if anyone in this room really cares, but there are also individual bands for pets, as well as bands for any sort of durable medical gear. So, and this is what the patient band looks like.
Equipment. Yeah, so if you got 3 kids, we just don't have to enter in their address and stuff over and over. That's the purpose of the parent-child. And if you lose a wheelchair, anybody ever got a big bus pulled up and there's a bunch of walkers underneath it and no one knows whose they are? Now there should be a band on it for the equipment band. You click that up and it will show you that that's a child, essentially, of the patient. So Eric Epley's walker or whatever, his wheelchair's bed.
Is there a link in the system that you're using, where it's by DOC or EM systems to get to all this data, or is it going to populate boards inside of those?
WebEOC is the backbone for the whole system, so the most data is in WebEOC. The other, we're back to the limitation of making everything work. So the linkages provide some of that information back and forth, but the most comprehensive information, all that patient data you saw there, that's only in WebEOC, the shelters and that other, where you can see all those medical fields.
So the interface is already built, and there's something you have to turn on to make it flow over.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It'll be a state active. I mean, it's going to be something the SOC and the SMOC say to do. Yes, ma'am.
Is that only happen during the connecting only happens during time of disaster?
Yes.
Correct. The last time that I'm aware of that we used it was the Bastrop wildfires. So it's not just a hurricane. We evacuated 10,000 people for that fire.
So if you got the HIE people in the room, they would say if we could figure out a way to put EMS bands or whatever on every patient every day, all day long, and have a, you know, like a UPI, that's a huge problem. That would be great. It would help the registry people. It would help us day-to-day link patients from interfacility transfers. It would help link EMS records to hospital record. It would. And I mean, I'm a proponent of that. I really am, because then when we go into disaster mode, you know, the guys are used to slapping on a band and scanning it, and it would just be, you know, we do it by the instant. It would be so much easier, and it would solve a lot of other problems. I think it ought to be, I personally think we ought to be making those bands really inexpensive and putting them like boxes of gloves. You just have 2 boxes of gloves up front, and you have a box of bands, and every day you come on. How hard would that be? And then that would boop, go into the laptop when you're doing your chart, and that links them into the system for the duration of their, this is simple. It's not simple, but it's Simple. Thank you, Chris. Good job.
Thank you all.
All right, oh, Dudley's back now that I'm 17 minutes over. I was on time when you left the room. I guess it's when you came back, it delayed things. I was waiting for you to get back.
I control the time space.
Locke, where you at, my brother? So I'm going to tell a little story about this because I think it's funny while he's getting his key put in. So I was in Midland, Odessa at the Holiday Inn Fun Dome at the and it was at the Texas Emergency Management Association's, the Emergency Management Association of Texas conference. And Locke did a presentation. So I'm going to tell a funny on myself because I typically do that. So I did a presentation, and I was sitting in a room, and I'd already had my laptop on. I finished my presentation. Locke was following me. And so I sat down, and I was going to just kill some email, right? It was like the end of the day, and I just wanted to spend about an hour and, act like I was paying attention to Locke while I killed a bunch of email. And he started talking and giving this, and we had met, but not a bunch, right? I think we were acquaintances, that's what I would say. And within 10 minutes of this talk, I was riveted. I'd stopped looking and I was paying attention because it dawned on me how powerful this is on an operational level. This is not the PIO, this is no longer the PIO realm. I mean, I really feel strongly that this is going to be an operational tool of untold proportions. So with that,
absolutely. How long do I have?
let's do 45 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
That'd be good. And if you want, you can, I want everybody to be able to, how can we get in the, do you want to come up here maybe, or what's the best way? He's going to be he's going to be showing the slides the whole time, right? Yeah. Is that one wireless? Just kind of stand over it. You don't need to talk to us. I would talk to the crowd as well, right?
Why don't I just turn it like this?
Yeah.
All right.
Is that better for y'all?
Okay. You can see my face instead of my back.
Oh, he needs to watch his present. He probably. Here, scoot back. You want to sit up here by me? Sure. All right. Wanda with the solution.
All right.
Let's pull that up so they can hear you. We have some trouble though. Make sure you get the mic close enough.
I gotta clear everything out so I don't hit the mic while I'm waving my arms. Okay, can you all hear me now? Hey, I gotta sit down for a presentation. This is like breaking all the rules. Okay, I'll be merciful to you guys here. You don't have to look at the screen until probably the end of the slideshow. So when I have some actual examples. We're going to talk about just a handful of things today. I actually was prepared for about a half-hour presentation. So y'all, if you have questions or anything, come on up to the mic and feel free to ask them. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We're going to talk about, we're going to lay some groundwork first and talk about the basics of social media before we get too far down the road. I find when I come and talk to people about social media, a lot of times people have misconceptions about what it actually is, and they've made it out to be something bigger than it needs to be, so we're going to cover what it actually is. We're going to give you some basic statistics and demographics, nothing like starting a presentation right around lunchtime about statistics and demographics. And then we're going to go through some tools you can use and give you some examples of how people have really used this stuff well in emergency management. So that'll give you some resources as well. Let's start talking about the conversation. We have seen in the past decade a shift in how people communicate. This is a graph showing total newspaper circulation, showing the declines of newspaper circulation. I've got Facebook and Twitter down there just to give you a frame of reference of when those services started up. Those services did not cause the decline in newspaper circulation, but rather were started to address the problem that did cause the decline. What we have is increasingly people are unwilling to trust what they hear from these curated news sources like newspapers and magazines and cable news channels, and people have begun turning to their friends, their family, and word of mouth to get their information. Part of this is generational, as we'll see when we talk about demographics, but part of it is cultural as well. And we're seeing a big shift away from traditional media to this new media. Facebook and Twitter and all this social media stuff is a response to a gap that was created when our culture started shifting away from trusting these news sources. And the traditional news sources didn't respond quickly enough. We now see that they are starting to respond, online publications and all that, but it took them a long time. Social media is nothing but the oldest form of communication. You guys, what's the oldest form of communication? Word of mouth, point to point. It's me telling you something, it's you telling me something, having a conversation. All the internet did was it took word of mouth communication and it blew it up. So now I can post something on my Twitter and whatever, 200 people will see it, and I just had communication with those 200 people. That was not possible before unless you could get in front of a room of people to communicate with that many people at once. So it changed the rules for point-to-point communication. Increasingly, what we're seeing is that you will trust what your friends tell you. Generally, recommendations from friends and family are accepted. I have a crazy uncle. I don't take any recommendations from him. But generally, otherwise, you take recommendations from friends and family. You tend to take recommendations from friends of friends as well. Hey, my friend, you got to watch out for that new thing. He's got it and he doesn't like it. You take that to heart. Increasingly, the cultural shift that we're seeing is the internet generation is trusting things if just enough people tell them something. So if they see it promoted enough on Twitter or it's a common hashtag down there, they're going to listen. That's a little frightening, but it's something that we can use. From a PIO perspective, we can use that. The increasing use of social media. Here's a timeline. We've got something weird happened with my numbers. Facebook has almost 800 million members, not 900, so my graph got skewed a little bit, but just under 1 billion people using the service. Twitter, about half as many, and Google Plus, even though it's only been around for about a year, has about 100 million users. That number is accurate. You can actually see on the timeline when each of the services started, so these are new emerging things. What really kicked off for Twitter, you can see the little hockey stick graph there. You're not supposed to trust those when they're forecasts, but when they're past performance, they're interesting. At the end of 2008, we had wildfires in California, again in 2009, and Twitter really took off. Twitter probably owes its success today to its use in emergency management. So technology has allowed our conversations to be fast, accurate, and relevant. I can speak directly to you. Because I know you and I have a relationship with you, I can tell you exactly what I know that you need to hear. And the new currency for us as emergency managers when we're communicating on these networks is trust. We have to build trust with the people we're trying to communicate with because they have a million different ways they can get this information. They don't need to be listening to us. So we need to build that trust. And trust is built by having your communication be fast, having it be direct, and having it be transparent. Now, Freedom of Information Act does not count for transparency. You have to go beyond that. You have to communicate your processes and the things you're doing. We'll see some examples of that when we get into the examples here. Let's talk about some demographics. Social media constitutes 93% of all online use. So the percentage of people using the internet, this is a subset of that. 93% of them are on some social media site on a regular basis. 1/8 of all time spent online is on one site, Facebook. The average amount of time spent online is 11 hours. That's another statistic here. I think this is next. Yeah, 11 hours per week. So that means, a little over an hour, maybe about an hour and a half a week are spent just on Facebook. And you guys probably know people who spend way more time than that on Facebook. Probably some in the office. 96% of Generation Y is on social media. So this is a major segment of our population that is using social media. 20% of all marriages in 2011, those people met online. 1 in 5 people married last year met online. This is not 1 in 5 internet users, 1 in 5 of the total population that met online. For the GBLT community, it's actually 3 out of 5 marriages were people who met online. Now, when we start talking about demographics, I know we have a tendency sometimes to dismiss it when we look at, say, Twitter, which has a younger skew for its user base. Keep in mind, 50% of the world's population is under the age of 30. So over half of the world is the age demographic of Twitter. So this is still a significant population that we need to keep in mind when we're writing plans and preparing for response. Another side note, this is a good one. Dr. Morber, this might ring some bells to you. The average age of patients infected by H5N1 is about 20 years of age across 160 cases. This is an old statistic I have, but it's about the 20-somethings get affected by this. And the mortality rate is about 60%.
That's correct.
So if you're looking at Twitter's user base and you're saying, well, it's 20 and 30-somethings, well, these are the people who, if we have an avian flu outbreak, they're going to be affected by this. If Twitter's going to lose a third of its user base, you're probably going to want to be communicating this kind of stuff on Twitter. It is second only to email in time spent online. So people still use their email overall as a total segment of the demographic. More people spend more time using email than they spend using social media, but it's only second. So just some example, just to put some scale here. China has 1.35 billion, India 1.2 billion, Facebook 845 million users. It's a little bit higher than that. It's almost 3 times the size of the United States, just the population of Facebook users. Again, just keep thinking about the pandemic influenza aspect of that, and that's a huge impact. Twitter, which was just a really small social network for a long time, is even on the map now, 200 million people. There are about 1 billion tweets posted a week. I focus a lot on Twitter because it's the easiest thing for me to use in my job in emergency management. This is a significant number, 1 billion tweets per week. So there's some tools we can use. These are some of the most popular sites out there. I've talked about Twitter and Facebook a lot lately. YouTube is an extremely significant social network. YouTube, I think it's downplayed. It seems like it's a little bit more work to create video, but how many of you guys have a smartphone? Yeah, probably almost everybody. I reluctantly got into the smartphone thing about 1.5 years ago, and I love it. But you can take really good video with these phones now. The expectation level for video quality on YouTube is about how high? Very low, right? You guys have seen YouTube videos before. You can do that. You can create a YouTube video. It's very easy. One of the nice things about the low quality video is that it actually takes a little bit of the pressure off. You know, standing in front of an HD news camera is extremely intimidating, but standing in front of one of these things is a little bit easier. It's very forgiving. It's very easy to upload. A lot of these new devices, especially the Android ones, actually have YouTube uploading natively. So you click share YouTube and it just goes on the internet. And you don't have to go and type things in, it just figures it out. It's really cool. YouTube even has a special government account for us to use. It actually allows for unlimited uploads and unlimited length of video. We can put on our big 1 hour long thing about the importance of emergency planning if you wanted to. But it's a very important tool. YouTube is also a great tool for getting information out of the field and into your EOC. Because it's so easy for people to shoot videos, the occurrence of the public shooting videos and uploading it to YouTube is just skyrocketed. You can get information about an incident that you're responding to off of YouTube usually, especially if there's lots of smoke or fire. Gets people really excited. Facebook. Okay, so Facebook is a story about your life. Facebook, obviously started off oriented towards college students, and now it's, for everyone. Anyone know what the fastest growing demographic segment is on Facebook? Over 55. Yeah, over 55 is the fastest growing demographic segment on Facebook because everyone's loading pictures on there. And if you want to stay in touch with your family these days, Facebook's almost the only way you can do that, get all those pictures of the grandkids. There's a lot of commenting that goes on Facebook. Commenting is actually where you build these relationships, these trust relationships. Having a Facebook page and having comments turned off is a death sentence for you if you're trying to get information from your public. If you can't ask them, tell me about what you're seeing out there, then I don't see a tremendous amount of value in using Facebook, to be honest with you. It doesn't work very well for one-way push communication. So if you're not willing to open it up and take information in from the public, it's probably a waste of your time in the long run. It's a great way to share photos and videos. A lot of these phones can actually upload video straight to Facebook now, just like YouTube. And it's a really good way to present photo galleries. We use our Facebook site to upload photos of CERT teams once they graduated, and it gets people on there commenting and builds a community for us to tap into later when we got questions to ask them.
So can we ask questions?
Yeah, please do.
How many people in the audience at their agency has a Facebook page?
Yeah.
How many of you guys have them open for comments like you talked about? Yeah. Anybody over 30 heard that and said, people could just write on that, oh my gosh, no, we're never doing that. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, it's all right.
It's terrifying. That's a scary thing.
50% under 30. I didn't even know that statistic. That's stunning. 96% that we're all going to have to, I think, change our way of thinking, morph our way of thinking. So keep going.
And let me give you guys a little, to ease your minds a little bit, if you're still kind of terrified of the thing I said about comments, you might actually just be ignoring everything I have to say from here on out. But what you can do actually is it's very easy to police your Facebook page. What you need to do ahead of time, though, is set a policy for what you're going to allow on your page. We took a really simple approach in our office. We said if anyone posts anything that threatens anyone's life, or health or safety, then we'll take it down. So I don't care if somebody goes on there and wants to talk about how OEM is wasting money and we bought a bunch of trailers and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. We leave it on there. But if they come in and they post the judge's cell phone number, well, that's going to probably impede our ability to respond during an incident, so we'll pull that down. If somebody threatens someone else on there, we'll pull that down. But it's actually been really easy to police. We've only had 1 or 2 things we've had to pull down, and it's mostly been because they've been spammy comments. People are fairly civil on our side, at least. It's Fort Bend County. We're all great in Fort Bend County. In Facebook, you have controls based on relationships, and so what you want to do is get as many people to come to your page and like it as you can, and you get some government agencies doing some pretty whacked out stuff with that. What you can do, though, is if you're pretty quick on your heels, when an incident happens, people are going to flood to your page. If you have policies in place to be able to coordinate and control that, that's a fine way to get people to like your page, is to just wait until it happens. It's actually really easy, even in the heat of things, to go through and make sure that everything's working okay on Facebook. Google Plus. Google Plus is a new thing, so it's kind of fun to talk about. Google Plus has a few pretty unique features that are great for emergency management. One of them is the Google Plus Hangouts feature. What you're able to do with this is take a group like this, and we could all have our laptops with our webcams up, and up to 8 of us could be talking at one time and projecting into a 4x2 grid on the screen, and we could broadcast that live video chat out to YouTube or out to Google Plus for everyone in the community to sign in and watch. So if you're going to do a news briefing for Unified Command, and if you've employed social distancing, or if it's difficult for the media to get to your scene, you could always broadcast it straight onto YouTube. You can even set up little webcams and do just a normal news conference and also have it going onto the internet at the same time. It's really neat, and it's totally free. It lets you host things on the fly. You can have, 9 presenters, and you can broadcast right on YouTube. So one of the important things when you get into these tools, and by the way, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google+, that stands as my recommendation for the tools to look at for social media. Those are the big players, and those are the easy ones for us to use. You need to develop a policy going forward. Now, what I don't want you to hear when I say policy is the policy your IT department has probably already put out about social media. That's a different kind of policy than what I'm talking about. Don't do it, yeah. That's not the one I'm talking about. Your IT department, your HR department will come out with a social media policy. If they haven't yet, they will eventually. It will probably be really vague, relatively uninformed, and it will probably mostly be limiting you. What you need to develop for your agency is a policy that ensures quality of content and interaction. So your legal and your IT and your HR they're going to cover your butt legally. What you need to do is write something that ensures quality. So some of the things you need to cover is how will you use these services to begin with? Simple things like we're going to load all of our all of our press briefings. We're going to have someone in the back of the room with a phone with 720p recording, and we're going to upload it on YouTube following every press briefing. That is a perfect thing to put into what I consider a good social media policy. Who will have access to it? Which one of your staff members are going to be out there monitoring the public when they reply to you or when they mention you? Who's going to be the one that's going out and looking for pictures on TwitPic of the fire that you're responding to? Define those roles in your organization. One of the things you need to resist the temptation of when you do this too, a lot of organizations look around the room and they look for the person who looks the youngest and they assign them to it. Resist the urge to do that. So these social media tools, in a lot of ways, you can train anyone up to use these things. They're not complicated. They're new, they're foreign, but they're not complicated. You can develop training programs, you can develop job aids. What you want is somebody with experience out there representing your agency. You don't want someone inexperienced out there, you'll look bad. How will you retain, or how can the public interact? I mentioned the Facebook thing. How are you going to let the public interact? I see when we go into examples, you'll see one of the most powerful parts of social media is getting information in from the public, not blocking them off, but pulling them in. How are you going to allow them to do that? How will records be retained? What's your record retention policy? You can't just sign into twitter.com and post updates on Twitter if you're not manually somehow retaining those records as well. You're likely not in compliance with the law if you're doing that. We haven't tested that here in Texas yet, but in states that have tested that concept, agencies have been forced to do manual backups of all their records because the terms of service for these companies says basically we own everything and you have no right to get it back. And that doesn't jive well with public where everything is essentially public domain when you're doing public information.
So one of the tools that's come up is that WebEOC now has a plugin for Twitter so that you could post something on a board and you would be able to tweet that from your account simultaneously when you save that record. But you own the WebEOC record for sure, and you can pull that up anytime you want simultaneously. Why? I think you were going to talk about Peer right now, right?
Yeah, well, I can mention we use, in the Houston-Uazi region for our public information platform, we use something called the Peer system, and it does the same thing for us. Basically, all our tweets go out through it, but it also handles all the replies and mentions that come in, all the Facebook comments, all that stuff is managed.
And it also fixes the website problem, right? Like you put it in one place, the website's updated, Facebook's updated.
It goes everywhere all at once, yeah. That's great for records retention. And what information will you share? So what we've done at Fort Bend County and what we're kind of in the basic phases right now regionally of developing these social media job aids and tools. We have a working group for it, but like Eric said about bureaucracy, it's getting all the right people in the room and move slowly. I like that. What information are you going to share? What we do is we now have the Joint Information Center or the PIO develops a fact sheet. It's just a bulleted list of facts. We get the incident commander to approve that and sign off on it. And then we tell the people in the JIC, you can use these facts however you want. Reply to people on Twitter, reply to people on Facebook, but use these facts. These are the approved facts. So it's a little bit of a tweak on how we do things typically, but it works within NIMS. And then demand quality. Clearly outline what you want people to be sharing and what kind of information people are going to be pulling. Because if you just leave it up to anybody, you're going to get the weirdest stuff out of this stuff.
Do you have okay.
So under examples, sorry, this is a little misplaced here. By the way, in our Joint Information Center in Fort Bend, and what I'm seeing as a trend increasingly is that rumor control is becoming the #1 role of the JIC. We've kind of had to accept that we're not the fastest source of information. There's a good example of this on this next slide. We are not. We can try to be, but we're not going to be. Like it's the guy with the cell phone. He's the fastest source. We can be the best source, though. We can make sure that our information is accurate. And in the first 48 hours, probably nothing's right. But we will eventually have better information than the guy with the cell phone. And it's our job to, as quickly as possible, communicate the good information out. Here's an example. The fastest information is here on the left. This is a guy taking a picture from a ferry boat from his iPhone of a plane in the Hudson. You guys have all seen this. But his caption, and you guys, there's no way you guys can read this. If any one of you can, you're like Superman. There's a plane in the Hudson. I'm on the ferry going to pick up the people. Crazy. Okay, that's not real great information. The picture is powerful. And actually, this picture was posted 23 minutes before the FAA knew that this plane was in the river. So, oops. They knew it was somewhere, but they didn't know it was in the river.
23 minutes. This was on Twitter with that caption. A ferry boat was there, and the FAA didn't know where their plane was.
Yep. The last transmission in the communication was, we're going to be in the Hudson. And the flight controller said, I'm sorry? And that was it. That was the last thing heard over the radio traffic, and it still took them a while to figure it out. So now contrast this with the information on the right. This is the kind of information that a well-informed DOC would have been able to come up with relatively quickly in New York. We would have been able to say that United Flight 1549 has crash landed in Hudson adjacent to Midtown. That's actually would be obvious by the photo for anyone who's from New York. You can then say that passenger rescue is underway. Responders from the FDNY and U.S. Coast Guard are on their way. At this time, no casualties have been reported. Now, what we've just said there on the right is essentially nothing. right? But we've said something, it's all factual, it's all accurate, and that's quick, and we're able to actually get that out. Those are also real short things that you can be tweeting or putting on Facebook. So here's an example of some of the information, why I say this is critical that you have policies to get in the information from the public into your EOC. This is a picture, the Discovery building, the Discovery Channel, their building in Washington, D.C., they had an active shooter incident, I think it was 2 years ago now. They had shut off the area, they had police there, they had snipers in place, and the building across the street still had some people in it. And it's office buildings, it's Washington, D.C., it's crazy. And this person sitting up in the office building looks out their window and they see a guy laying on a ground with a big gun. And they think, this is the bad guy. And they post this thing on Twitter, and they're not even thinking about it. They're just posting it because they post probably what their lunch looks like. So you've got this police officer and he thinks he has cover. He thinks that he can't be seen, but his location is now visible to 200 million people on the internet. So if we aren't looking for stuff like this, because I'll guarantee you the bad guys are looking for stuff like this. You know, on all these tools on these phones, you can see what's nearby you. During the Mumbai terrorist attacks, those guys were using smartphones. They were using the nearby feature. They were using all kinds of awesome tools on their smartphones to know where the police were, where they could get to safely, where they could evacuate to, and how to avoid the law. And they held off for a long time. And I can guarantee you, in any kind of coordinated terrorist incident, you're going to have guys on the smart devices looking for an intel. And they're probably going to find it before you, but you still need to be out there looking for this stuff. Here's another really good example. This is a nice little team moving into position. This was also posted on Twitter. It looks like the White House, but I don't actually think it is. They're just running across the grass, running into position. Now, if the bad guys hold up on the inside, he knows where they're going to. He can see everything. Some of the ways that we do this to solicit input, there's two different ways. The first one is going out there and hunting the information down, and that's a little complicated. That's a big process, and I encourage you to do it. You need to still do that. We'll talk about that in a sec. The other way is to invite the public to report things to you. They will do that to some extent, and these are some examples. I've got the City of Houston and Fort Bend and Harris County here. These guys, we're all actually allowing citizens to report major events to us using social media tools. So somebody can say, I have street flooding in front of my house. They put the little hashtag flood. They mention Houston OEM, and that tweet pops up in front of their, well, it starts with their PIO, who can then route it to someone else who needs to note that there's flooding in a certain location. And it works with flooding, with rain, with hail, with ice, with everything. People can report any kind of incidents over social media to these agencies. This has been done regionally. We all a couple of us are working together on it. Now it's just kind of happening region-wide. That's a really great way to get public input on your stuff. The thing is, when somebody reports something to you, you have to very quickly respond to them and let them know that you got the report. Just to close that feedback loop so that they know that they've been heard. Once you do that, that person will continuously look out for new updates for you and keep sending them to you because they feel like all of a sudden they're part of your team. Making the public feel like they're part of your team is a major, major factor in ensuring quality in this feedback. This is a really fun one. Sergeant Dyer, I don't know if anyone had heard about this. This was about a year ago. We had a guy up in Oklahoma skip bail and flee to Texas. He showed up in Wallace, Texas, down in Fort Bend County, a town of about 2,000 people. That might be generous, actually. And was spotted down there and then fled into the woods in the summertime. A fun trivia fact for any of you would-be criminals. When it's 100 degrees outside, they can't see you on infrared from the helicopter, all right? The air temperature is higher than your body temperature, and they can't see anything. It's like whiteout. So this guy was a former Marine, ran into the woods, took us 3 days to find him. Well, on day one, I decided we're going to try to find some stuff out about Sergeant Dyer. I did a really, really basic search for his name, and all this stuff popped up. July 4 Patriot, had a YouTube account. He was part of some fringe leftist group that believed in protecting the Constitution, even if it meant breaking the law and all this kind of stuff. The guy was pretty much a nut job. He also, the organization he was a part of, the Texas president, lived in Sugar Land, Texas. Sugar Land is actually, if you were to take the points he was spotted, is in just about a straight line from all the locations he was spotted, and we knew he was friends with this president. So we called down to the incident command post. I said, hey, Alan, does anyone down there know that Sergeant Dyer might be heading over to his buddy's place in Sugar Land? Does anyone know he's part of this group? No, nobody knows. So we were actually able to get information about this guy off of his social media sites and get it to law enforcement so they could be kind of on the lookout. It raised the alert. We are also suspecting that he was going to have a buddy probably come pick him up at some point. We caught him at Sonic buying a lime slushie 3 days later, so that was fun. It was really hot out.
Probably because he was tweeting it. Get the lime slushy.
Here's another example of how we used this. We had some F0 tornadoes touch down in Fort Bend County, just nothing, but exciting for us when we don't get tornadoes that often, touch wood. What we had was a problem with monitoring, and I'll give you guys some insights from this. We were monitoring social media because people are going to post pretty quick on Facebook that their house was just knocked over by a tornado. So we were actually out there actively monitoring. We ran into some problems. For example, just about every teenager wants to say that a tornado went through their bedroom to explain how things look. So you get a lot of false positives. But we were actually able to see some people loading photos. This is a photo that we found on Twitter of a house with the garage door knocked in and a partial collapse of the roof. Unfortunately, it's a very low resolution photo and they didn't post their address and we couldn't snag their location data, but we were able to recognize the style of architecture and know basically where the winds were reported and go on Google Street View and find this exact house. So we were actually able to send a damage assessment team out to it, and that was all just using free tools on the internet. So Craig Fugate had a really important quote. He said, if you're talking to me and if you call me and you tell me that your house is burning down, that's pretty good information. So he's talking about kind of the 911 situation. 911, my house is burning down. He says, if you tell me that your house is burning down and you have photos and you have video of it burning down, that's extremely good information. So we're taking that approach. If we can find a picture somewhere of some tornado damage to your house, that is better than a 911 call for us in terms of evidence. Like, we know exactly where that is and we have an example of the damage. This is a fun one from a law enforcement angle. I don't remember this gal's Twitter handle, but she was charming to follow on Twitter for a while. This is a group, it's a fraternity. They call themselves a fraternity, but they more closely resemble a gang. You might remember a shooting on Galveston Island where someone got hit in the neck from a stray bullet and passed away during a party. This is a similar situation. They were planning on a big party down in Matagorda, down in the bay. And we were able to meet with DPS, get some of our Lieutenant Taronis and some of his guys in the room up in our EOC, and we started digging through their social media profiles. That's a really fun thing about this, is that people, they friend people and they link their accounts, and you can just dig down. It's like going down the rabbit hole, and you can start seeing all these connections. And you start picking out a few of these people who tweet, once every 30 minutes or something, and you put them on a list. And Lieutenant Taronis and his guys, when they were down there that weekend, they had TweetDeck up on the MDTs in their cars, and every time one of those people sneezed on Twitter, it popped up in a cop's car. And so that if anything started to happen and they said things are getting rowdy at such and such a place, there'd be 5 DPS cars there within a few minutes. So this was a really great way to proactively monitor potential problems. I'm working with a company right now called MetaLayer to be able to, we have 6 million people in the Houston region. We can't do this practically and follow all 6 million people and know what's going on. There's a company out there called MetaLayer that takes all the data from those social networks and rolls them up into a dashboard. It uses natural language processing to be able to predict what people are talking about and aggregate it up. Sorry, I'm totally geeking out here. But basically give you a data table of this many people are talking about fatalities, this many people are talking about tornadoes, this many people are talking about hurricanes, and let you drill down into that data in a smart way. They're actually working with New Orleans Police Department to use their software to actually predict crimes now. So people are talking on Twitter about going and busting someplace up. That's going to pop up in a police station now. So here's some good tools that we can use to be able to get at this information. I promise I'll go kind of quick here. We've got remote workers. So we're all familiar with the concept of an incident management team, right? An IMT. Something gets too big for us to handle, we call in, people show up with duffel bags and start running the operation. You can do the same thing with social media. The great thing about this is it's totally distributed and it's accessible nationwide, so they don't have to be in your EOC to be able to be doing social media monitoring for you. If you have good policies and good procedures, you can build a team of people who are able to volunteer to help you with your social media stuff. These people need to still fall under ICS. We still need to follow the rules. They still need to have chain of command. You can't have 30 VOST members working under one person because span of control, right? So we still have to follow the rules and construct our teams in a smart way, but it can still be done. Traditionally, we've just fed all of this information up into the Joint Information Center. We don't have an information and intel unit in Fort Bend County. I have not found tons of EOCs that have an info intel unit. If they did, that would be a great place for all this stuff to go. As is, we find that the JIC is the best source for verified information and for a collection of all the rumors so we can contrast and compare and make sure the data is right. So we've been feeding this information up into the JIC. Again, if you have info intel under ops or under planning, wherever you guys stick it, that's another good place to pull this info into. Social media is a really great way to handle your donations and your volunteer management, especially if you have a distributed team. We saw this with some wildfires in our region. We actually had a volunteer get on Facebook and start a Facebook group and actually start managing donations and managing volunteers from Facebook. Fortunately, they pretty quickly went ahead and pulled her into the judge's office, had her work inside with the response partners so that she was just out there. Then there's some software tools that can help you out. I can make sure this presentation is available to y'all afterwards so you don't have to write all this stuff down, but there's a great tool out there called TweetDeck. You download it onto your phone, onto your computer. It works on almost any device you own, and it's what DPS used for the AKA party. What it does is it'll alert you when there's a new message posted, when somebody mentions you. It'll also let you do searches and save it all in columns, and it ends up looking, I won't say like Outlook, but it lists things out for you in columns that you can scroll across to get your information. There's a similar tool called TweetGrid that does not require you to download anything. You can use it anywhere you have an internet connection. It's another good tool. Something called Seek a Tweet helps you find Twitter users who are near you. So you can go to Seek a Tweet. If you have a pipeline leak, you can click that, set a 10-mile radius, and it'll give you a list of all the Twitter users in that radius. And you can start messaging them to get information to them or from them if you're not at the scene yet. We've also got TrendsMap. TrendsMap gives you a map overview and shows you what people are generally talking about in different areas. You can zoom in pretty close and get an idea for what people are talking about in certain areas, so you can spot problems as they're arising, especially if you're in a recovery phase from a large incident. That's a really powerful tool. And there's a tool called Creepy. Creepy is a really fun tool to use. Eric saw me use it when we were at Super Happy Funland or whatever that place was called with the clowns. But it was, it's a really great tool. You plug in.
Okay, Eric, what?
You plug in a. That completely sounded not good, Locke.
Sorry about that.
The fun dome.
Take that as you will. Oh, there were clowns. If you punch in someone's Twitter handle, it goes out through their Twitter account and looks at every photo they've ever posted, and it pulls the location data and the date stamp out of that photograph and then drops them on a map on a timeline. So if you have a user, I use this for verifying information. If somebody posts a picture of a flooded roadway and they say it's Highway 6, there's no signs, I can run that photo through that extraction tool, and it'll tell me where that photo was taken. If they took it with one of these with GPS turned on, it'll tag that photo.
Do you guys know that? Every one of your phones has location data, every picture you ever take?
Unless you turn it off, yep. A lot of people leave it turned on, and it helps me. So go ahead and leave it turned on. That's your bad advice from today's session. But it also lets you, even if they have it turned off and it's not stamped on that photo, if you look and you see, yeah, all this person's pictures are from Missouri City, and this photo is kind of near Missouri City, that lends some credibility. If you pull it up and this user's, all their pictures are from somewhere in Ohio, you might second guess the validity of that photo. It might be fake. But it helps you go back through someone's history and find out roughly where they've been and what they've been doing. By the way, all the information that these tools use is public domain. This is all public information. Nothing that I do for this stuff is digging in, hacking, cracking, phishing. It's all public information. So we haven't yet violated any laws. We'll see where that kind of stuff falls in the future. For policies, there are a lot of resources out there for social media policies, for good ones. There's curated lists online. They're easy to find. If you would like an example of a few of them, I won't go into detail with them here, but get my contact information from someone or from me, and I'll be happy to work with you to find you a policy that matches your organization. There are thousands of examples out there. check with your legal and executive office to make sure that the policy that you've written, to ensure quality, actually meets their legal requirements. If you can write your policy before they write theirs, your policy is going to live and be a lot better. And then keep in mind for these services, there's alternate terms of service that you can use. So when you click I agree without reading that big block of text, there's a special big block of text for you as a government agency that gives you a lot more rights than it gives an average citizen in a lot of cases. For an example of some of those, you can go to apps.gov. Those are the ones negotiated for the federal government. But in a lot of cases, if you call up Twitter and say, I want a terms of service like you gave the feds, they can arrange that for you. That's it. Any questions? Okay.
So two things off the top of my head. First, do you have hard examples of those policies? You really spend a lot of time. Would you be willing to share, does the regional, how do y'all do that? Do you have the same policies as they do? Does Houston share the same?
No.
That's a departmental or an agency jurisdiction developed thing?
Regionally, we have a working group that's developing, coordinating all the policies together right now. So I can at least send you where we're at right now with that, but it's not.
Would people think that would be helpful?
You'll at least see the policies of the various agencies in the Houston region. You'll see what all our policies are at least.
So, straw poll. How many people, when they sat here and started this conversation, thought, whatever, PIO, Twitter stuff? Raise your hand. It's okay, raise your hand. How many people now are convinced this is an essential tool that emergency management, from an operational perspective, now need to understand intimately? Raise your hand. Aye. Yep. That's huge. How many people y'all are watching the hashtag GETAC or TTAF or SMEM? Did we talk about SMEM at all?
Didn't talk about SMEM.
We tried to change it where it's still not there yet.
We've tried.
Social media in emergency management, SMEM. So if you follow SMEM, so the hashtag is the $sign.
Pound
And
sign.
then pound sign, whatever. SMEM. If you just search for that on your Twitter account, you'll see lots of people from around the country, and there are some real geniuses at this that talk regularly. There's even a little thing that they do once a week or what?
Friday afternoons.
Friday afternoons, you'll see them, and they'll follow on that hashtag. Okay, the days of we're going to put out the news briefing at 3 p.m. Is kind of over. And it's not a neutral. It's not like, well, we'd like to do this and that'd be better, but it's neutral. There are jurisdictions now that are being slammed because they're not tweeting enough. I mean, to think that because, we did a great job responding, we saved all the lives and everything, but we didn't tell them which roads were closed on a tweet, what we were doing real time, and that they were seen as that was a problem, that was discussed in papers. That's huge.
We've seen several things recently about law enforcement agencies that are putting up surveillance videos on YouTube. And, I mean, the guy that tried to abduct the child, he just gave up because so many people had seen it. It was a matter of time.
Yeah, that's a really important addition. Facebook actually has a clause in their terms of service that says that they will comply with any law enforcement representatives when the life of a child is at risk. We recently had a child abduction in Fort Bend County, and we're actually able to have a sheriff's deputy email a special email address at Facebook and be able to get in touch with Facebook and have Facebook basically turn over the records for those people who are friends of that child on Facebook so they can start combing through and looking for relationships. If we wouldn't have found the child as quickly as we did, thank God, we would have had this list of all of his friends, all of their known acquaintances, and we would have just had that in front of us there. So there's some very powerful tools there.
So, since we've been doing this, we had 7 or 8 people on, and now there's 10 or 12 people on the YouTube stream. This was recorded, right? So if you want to show this whole presentation at a staff meeting, at a whatever, so that ustream.com, it's you and then stream.com. You can go to the TTAF website to get there, or just dial in ustream.com and then not Google, but search GETAC. TTAF or GETAC will bring up the videos, and these are recorded and kept for Does anybody know how long Ustream keeps? A while.
Forever. Tell you.
Okay. Well, once again, man, I'm pulling him around the country. He's been to Denver. He's been all over the place doing this talk. How many people thought this was one of the best talks they've heard in a long time? Yep. It's a real treasure, no kidding, for Texas to have somebody that's, number one, as eloquent and can speak well, explain things easily, great presentation, and he's a Texan, so we're glad he's here, although he's back from a trip across the world or something. By the way, don't follow Locke unless you want to get pictures of every place he's been, every roller coaster, everything, man.
Every clown?
Fun dome clown. All right, well, we are right at 11:30, which is, oh, that's one time I thought we'd break. Any questions or concerns for the group right now? All right, any agenda items? What are we missing? What are we, oh. Yep, very good. Will you put them at the back so that they can walk out? So the Texas Hospital Association's doing an emergency preparedness mini conference. It's a one-day seminar on September 14th. There will be flyers at the back of the room. That's been blasted out on their THA stuff, but please take these brochures. Denise is going to put those at the back, and that should be a really great seminar. I'm going. I know a bunch of people are going. What are we missing? What are we not thinking about? Any suggestions from the audience? I've got a new one that we're going to be focusing on now. Who knows what the initials EMP are? Raise your hand if you know what EMP. Raise it high. Okay. Those of you who haven't raised your hand about EMP, Maggie McGraw is going to do a presentation at our next meeting. It's going to be on our agenda to talk about electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse. We've known about it since the first time they set off the first nuclear detonation, but we are not concentrating on it in a great way. And if you think a pandemic is a problem, study. There's a couple of books we can give you. What's the next second, or what's the next? The second after?
1 second after.
1 second after. Read that book and you'll not sleep for a year.
It's how George Clooney robbed that casino in Ocean's 11, by the way. Remember that?
Yeah, remember in Ocean's 11 when George Clooney robbed the casino and they had the van and it popped that. But this works on a nuclear blast that any rogue nation, any group could lob one of these into our atmosphere over the U.S. I mean, it's a real deal. We'll have a briefing, a summary at the next GETAC meeting. So Reagan, you got that?
Could be a solar flare.
Anything else?
We already started a discussion about those mega buses.
About the what?
The mega buses.
The mega buses. Are they on 35? They're going between Dallas and San Antonio.
30, 20.
30, 20, and 35 now have mega buses. And if you thought a Coach USA bus was a bad day, wait till somebody, where did the other one wreck?
Chicago.
Outside of Chicago, they balled one up. There's 83 people on a mega bus. 83.
2 stories.
Yeah, it's like a London bus that goes 75 or 80 miles an hour. With a lot of big windows to go out the front. All right, thank you guys very much. We're adjourned. That was good. Good meeting. It was. Victor's deal was good. The other stuff was good. I watched the whole meeting.